joined now by Karima Bungudu, who is a gender and female genital mutilation analyst at the United Nations Population Fund. Thank you for joining us on Newsnight. I wanted to ask you, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that we see when it comes to female genital mutilation? And also, should we begin to see this just not as a health issue, but also as a gender equality issue?
Yes, of course. So one of the biggest misconceptions is the fact that female genital mutilation controls the woman or the girl's sexuality. Another misconception is really how it's perceived as a form of cleanliness for aesthetics as well. It's done because to enable the girl to be marriageable. So it's a deeply rooted, harmful social norm that it's practiced in our communities and it's deeply ingrained in our society and needs to be stopped, immediately.
Indeed, so there are no benefits, just harm.
Yes.
That's the fact.
Exactly.
Well, despite the advocacy, I mean, it's just like listening to a broken record sometimes. We say the same things, collaboration, awareness. And despite the many things that are done each year, Nigeria fortunately still ranks third worldwide when it comes to FGM. So I need to ask you, as someone who knows, what are we doing wrongly? I mean, have there been any significant changes with all of this advocacy, and how fast really can we see changes?
Exactly. So yes, so there have been positive changes. We've seen a decline in the last NDHS of 5% amongst women aged 14 to 49, and which is a significant amount. Perhaps it looks, 5% may look like a small number, but when you look at it against our population, it's a huge achievement. At the same time, also, we heard from our minister, we heard from other stakeholders, and it's clearly evident that the government of Nigeria is working towards ensuring that FGM is abandoned in Nigeria.
People have been talking about the medicalization of FGM, where you have the procedure being performed by healthcare providers. Can you discuss some of the implications of this trend and how it affects the efforts when it comes to eradicating this?
Yeah, so definitely. So because of the awareness that have been created, you find that some have moved from performing the actual cutting into moving it into health facilities, to have it in a safer environment, in a cleaner, and it's usually performed by a health professional. So in the event that there's maybe complications, that health professional will be able to attend to it. So really, medicalization is also another big challenge that we have in Nigeria that is also impeding on our efforts towards abandonment of FGM.
I'm glad you mentioned 5%. I mean, and it's huge because when you look at the lives behind those numbers, it's huge. But many times FGM is perpetuated by those around you. It's mothers that are pinning you down.
Exactly.
Aunties, those that are very familiar with you are the ones carrying out this harmful practice. I wanted to find out what was the biggest propeller to the achievement of the 5% we saw in Nigeria, and how do you suggest that we change these attitudes of those closest to the women and girls at once perpetrating this act? Are we sending the right message to the wrong people? What's going on?
So, like I mentioned earlier, it's a deeply rooted social norm, and these people have been practicing this FGM for generations. So it's difficult, to wake up and, over just a few years, to say you want to see significant changes. So it's something that takes, a long time, a lot of investments, a lot of efforts for people to be able to change their attitudes to something that they truly believe in, and for something that they feel that they really need to uphold and preserve their tradition and culture. So, so I think what needs to be done is for us to intensify our efforts. This is what we've been doing, and this is why the International Day of Zero Tolerance has been set every February 6th, really to galvanize that action, to create that awareness. And we need to create more awareness at the grassroots level, because there's a high amount of ignorance also and misconceptions, like we said earlier. So we need to work with all stakeholders, girls, women, men, boys, traditional religious leaders. Many of these practices are done, we have a patriarchal, society, and really some of this, it's a violation of a human rights, and it's done really to also to satisfy, that patriarchal demand, really.
At the story we read, just introducing this conversation, the fight against female genital mutilation, there was an emphasis on the power of survivors' voices. How can we better amplify these voices, and also what sort of support systems are available to them?
So at United Nations Population Fund, there's a joint program with UNICEF for the elimination of FGM. So we really like to bring survivors at the forefront, of course with consent and all, so that people hear from the survivors themselves, and they get to tell their stories and share, what they've been through, and most importantly, how they've been able to come off about it, and how we're supporting them also to become champions and agents of change, and being able to also spread the word within their community. So I think these are some of the things that we need to promote, really hearing the voices of the survivors.
Indeed. I was looking at the statistics from the WHO as well. 1.4 billion US dollars is spent annually in global health systems on this issue. So it's very expensive.
Yes.
It has no benefits.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the health sector, because when this dastardly act is carried out, people leave the trauma the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
Does the health care sector in Nigeria have the capacity to help? And also, do we have enough knowledge among the healthcare practitioners to even identify, treat, and be volunteers and community messengers for this cause?
So I mentioned the UNFPA-UNICEF Joint Program for the Elimination of FGM, and one of our strategies really is capacity building for healthcare workers, most especially at the health facility levels. So really build their capacity to be able to even identify, a case of FGM when they see one, and for them to be able to provide the services they can within their limits, and also refer cases, that are beyond their limits to higher institutions. So these are some of the things also we're doing in order to build the capacity of our healthcare workers.
Just before you go, I wanted to ask you, do you think we're seeing enough punishment, repercussions for perpetrators? Perhaps that's one strategy that the world hasn't looked at when it comes to FGM. What's your take?
So we have the right laws. We have the Violence Against Persons with Prohibition Act, which was enacted in 2015, and I believe it has been domesticated in all of the states, I think, but one. So we have the laws, but we still have challenges in implementing these laws and even creating awareness on the existence of these laws. So a lot of work needs to be done, and this is what we're doing also at UNFPA, really trying to bring these laws to the grassroots level for the layman to really understand that this is a violation of human rights, and it's a criminal act to perform FGM.
Well, we thank you so much for the work that you do, and thank you for sharing your insights with us here on Newsnight. This is Karima Bungudu, who is a gender and female genital mutilation analyst at the United Nations Population Fund.